The Sony ZV-E10 came out in 2022, and that's been nearly 3 years since release. In a world where tech moves really fast, that can make it seem like you're now looking at an outdated camera, but I really don't think that's the case. In fact, I think this is still gonna be the budget king. This is still the best bang for your buck. This is still the entry-level camera to get in 2025. Sony did recently release a ZV-E10 Mark II, but don't get it mixed up. That is not a replacement for this camera. That is just another new camera. It costs more money. It's got a different sensor. In my opinion, this is still the budget king. If you're looking to go from iPhone sort of video setup, or maybe just some kind of older gear, maybe you're like a small brand or influencer or something and you're looking to up your game in terms of quality for your content on social media, this is still the camera to get in 2025 and probably beyond. And I want to tell you why I think that. So you're probably not familiar with me, but I'm really not like a camera nerd. I mean, kind of. What I am is somebody who is currently employed as a full-time videographer and content creator. I do freelance work. I've done it for some years now. I like to think of myself as a practitioner, so I feel like I'm really familiar with this technology because I use it all the time. With that in mind, I feel like I can tell you with great confidence that the ZV-E10 is both a great camera, but more importantly, this is a camera that if you're making that jump from iPhone filmmaker, content creator to mirrorless, this is a camera that's going to grow with you as you grow, both in like your audience and maybe making money, but also as you grow in your skill and ability as a photographer, as a filmmaker, as a content creator, as a on-camera talent, or whatever it may be. There's this thing that happens with technology as it gets released, whether it's cars or smartphones or cameras. When the tech first starts to hit the market, it's really expensive. And then as new generations come out, they keep introducing new, big, like game-changing headline features that you really want. Those headline features tend to only be available in the high price tag, sort of luxury version of those items. Over time, as the technology continues to advance, those big headline game-changing features become less and less expensive and available on things like entry-level models. Once those major advances have already happened, as new models continue to get released, the stuff that you get tends to be smaller and smaller in terms of its actual impact on your use case. Digital cameras have followed this exact trajectory. When they first came out, each new model had like a big feature that was going to make a real difference, but that's really not happening anymore. As newer cameras come out, what you're getting are smaller improvements, things that are kind of more niche, special use cases. The truth is that right now on an entry-level camera, you can get all of the major features that you're looking for that are going to make a real difference in terms of the quality of stuff you can get and how easy it is to do it. The ZV-E10 can be had brand new for $600 or $700, maybe some cool deals coming up with the holidays, who knows. I would skip the kit lens, by the way, if you're kind of looking at it like, oh, the kit lens is an extra $100. It's really bad in my opinion. I would just not get it. I really think that this is the point where if you spend any less, like Sony does make cheaper cameras, Canon does as well, you're going to be missing out on stuff that's going to make both a difference in how you make your content, and you're going to sort of cap yourself in terms of how far you can go in the future with getting accessories and lenses and that kind of stuff and improving your content. With all of that said, I know I'm not going to be the only person who says this, but when it comes down to it, you've got a budget for your camera setup. 10 times out of 10, I would recommend spending a little bit less money on your camera body if it means that you can spend more money on things like lenses, lighting, and audio gear. Because those three things are going to have a much more outsized impact on the quality of your content and just the image you're going to get than you would get by spending a few more dollars on a camera body. So now I want to talk about what I think those features actually are that make the big difference in capturing good content, and conveniently, there are 10 of them that I have written down for the ZV-E10. Number one is kind of a two-parter. It's the fact that you get a 24 megapixel sensor that is enough resolution to really do something with, whether it's, you know, real estate or portraits or whatever kind of cropping you need to do. That is plenty of resolution. And on top of that, you can take those photos in the RAW format, which if you're new to this kind of stuff, RAW is amazing. It really gives you a ton of power and flexibility with your photos after you've already shot them. Number 2, you're getting the fairly new-ish Sony Color Science. You know, this is one of those things people have talked about online for years, and I would tend to agree that some of the older sensors that they had were not as good, specifically with skin tones, that kind of a thing. But once you get to ZV-E10 and beyond, I think that they've really solved all that. Their colors look amazing, as good as any of the other brands. Number 3 is a big one. It's the ability to shoot in 4K for video. In this case, you're actually getting a 6K sensor that then downsamples to 4K, which yields that really sharp looking footage that everybody likes. And maybe just as important is when you shoot in 4K and, you know, landscape mode, you can cut in for vertical videos and you've still got enough resolution to get a pretty sharp looking image. Number 5 is another video feature. It's the ability to shoot in the various color profiles. In this case, you're getting Sony S-Log2 and S-Log3. Those might be kind of in the category of like a little more advanced as far as video features go, but shooting in S-Log gives you a really wide dynamic range and it gives you the ability to really manipulate the colors again after you've already taken your footage. Number 6 is super important. We're talking about the Sony autofocus. This is something that they've done really well for a long time, but let me just say with confidence, by the time you get to the ZV-E10 and newer and beyond, the autofocus is darn near perfect. You can get older Sony cameras that are going to have a better image or full frame or whatever, but the autofocus on the ZV-E10 is just so stinking good. It really will find your eyes or whatever your target is, lock on, you can touch to focus. There's just so many good things about it. It's, at this point, it's kind of an indispensable feature, I think, for a lot of people, especially when you're shooting content like this and there's no one behind the camera. Number 7 is kind of like a 2-for-1 deal. Again, you're getting, you know, relatively good audio inputs. The 3.5 millimeter input jack on the side for different microphone options, but you're also getting the Sony Hot Shoe, which is really good. There's a lot of microphones now that are starting to take advantage of that, kind of a direct injection of audio, if you will. Very cool feature. Number 8, you've got the fully articulating screen. This is obviously important for if you're shooting yourself, vlogging, that kind of a thing. But I found that even being the guy behind the camera, it's so nice to have an articulating screen to get goofy angles. Number 9 is the HDMI output. I think is absolutely crucial if you're going to do things like live streams, but it's also really important if you're going to use any kind of external monitor, which I do all the time. Number 10, we save the best for last, and that is the fact that you're getting the Sony E-mount lens options. If you're not familiar, E-mount is just the actual like size and kind of hardware of the mounting onto this camera. And Sony E-mount lenses have been around for such a long time. You now have a giant ecosystem of lenses to choose from. And what that means is that you can go get yourself a camera and spend not a lot of money and still get a pretty decent lens. But as you grow over time, or as your budget increases over time, you can get into maybe some mid-tier lenses or go all the way up to the, you know, $2,000-$3,000 Sony full-frame lenses. And every single one of those is going to be compatible and fit right on this camera. That's kind of a point I was trying to make earlier, that this is a camera that can really grow with you, is stuff like that. Like being able to get really inexpensive lenses to start and then to kind of level up as you go along, which is what I've done, is invaluable. That really extends the life of the camera body as far as like your career goes. I would say the same thing about being able to shoot in RAW, being able to shoot in S-Log. Those are features you might not take advantage of right away. Like you can just buy a ZV-E10, put a lens on and start going right now. You don't have to have a bunch of expertise, but as you get a little more technical or you want to make improvements, you actually have the option to do that. I'm going to put this in here because I know somebody's probably bound to ask, as far as lenses go, what do I recommend? My favorite lenses are going to be the Sigma 16mm f1.4. This thing is like legendary. This is kind of the GOAT of like content creator lenses. Great autofocus, really good at low light. I think has the right kind of like focal length that shoots pretty wide, so it's really good for like talking head and that kind of a thing. Say you've only got the budget for one lens and you want one lens to do absolutely everything. My pick is the Tamron 17-70. Love this lens. It's got some image stabilization built in there. Really long range. 70 mil is like pretty far, and then 17 is maybe just about wide enough to do some vlogging, but definitely this is just like the zoom lens that will do everything. I love it. Another honorable mention is probably the relatively new Sigma 10 to 18. If you're doing like real estate or anything that needs like a really wide field of view, which I do pretty often, another great option. There's honestly so many good lenses out there for this system. You really can't go wrong, but those are three that I like. It's a tradition for me to do a section in every kind of review video of things that I hate. Despite the title of this section of the video, there really is nothing that I hate about this camera. I actually really love this camera. I've basically built a career on this camera in the last few years. Number one is going to be towards the like photography crowd. There's no viewfinder. There are a lot of situations where I like to use a viewfinder and you don't get one here. You have to rely entirely on the screen. Like I said, especially for photographer types, they may just not like that. In conjunction with that is the fact that there's no built-in flash. That doesn't bother me at all. Some people are really into it. Another one that could really influence your decision, especially if you're a video guy or gal, is there's no in-body image stabilization. Now, the reason I wouldn't put this on the list of like must-haves of headlining features is because it's so easy to get around, because you've got tripods, you've got gimbals, you've got stuff you can do in post-production, you've got handles. There's just so many other options to stabilize a camera. I don't know if it's like 100% necessary, but it is a nice thing to have, and you don't get it with this camera. So now I want to hear about it in the comments. Do you think that is the correct list of features? Is there anything you would add? Is there anything you might take away? I really genuinely did build a career on this camera, and this video is kind of an homage to it because it is time for me and ZV-E10 to part ways. I'm doing more professional work, so I am going to move on to more professional cameras. But I promise you, if you're on the fence, just go for it. This is the camera to get in 2025. And yeah, that's it. I'm Good Rebel. I'll see you in the next one.